Wake up. Stand up. Good afternoon, students. Okay, thank you. Sit down. How was your day? Alhamdulillah. Okay, let's start our lesson. Today's topic is chemical bond. We learned this also in review again today. Firstly, let's talk about the chemical bond. What is chemical bond? Who wants to say? What is bond? Bond, not chemical, not physical. Bond. What is bond, Mustafa?
It's a mutual attraction between the nuclear atom.
I said bond, not chemical bond. What is bond? Yes, our.
It's a bond between two atoms. Reaction between two atoms.
This is chemical bond. What about bond? Ahmed with it.
It's the binding of or combination between two
Substance. Okay, bond means the attraction of the two substances. Bond can be physically, can be chemically, can be emotional. For example, between two persons there is bond. Which bond? Emotional bond. They love each other, for example. This is bond also. But chemical bond means is a mutual attraction between the nuclei and the valence electron of different atoms. Yani, we know that the atoms are two parts, nucleus and electron cloud. So the two atoms, electrons, attract with the other atoms, nucleus, and they form attraction. This attraction called chemical bonds. But which electrons? Valence electrons. What is valence electrons? Who wants to say? Valence electrons. Yes, Ibrahim. Yes, the valence electron means available to be gained, lost, or shared. Yani the othermost energy level electrons are called valence electron. Let's talk about the types of bond. There are generally two types of bond. Ionic bond and chemical bond. Let's continue with the ionic bond. Ionic bond, what is the ionic? Who wants to say, what's the ionic? Yes, Mustafa.
between a non-metal and a metal.
What?
Between a non-metal and a metal.
Yes, true but not enough. What else? Yes?
About the involving combination of two ions.
Yes. Ionic means yani ion. What is ion? If atom lose or gain electron, it becomes a charge. If something has become a charge, it is called ion. So ionic bonds means between the ions. Yani two ions combine, they form attraction between the ionic, so we can call that ionic bonds. Okay? They are formed when atoms gain or lose electron, and if the compound has a metal, then it is an ionic bond. Yani we can say generally, between the metals and non-metals, we call that this is ionic bond. Why? Because metals generally lose electron and become a positive charge, and non-metals gain electron and negative charge. So they form ionic bond. And example of ionic bond. As you see, boys, this is sodium and this is chlorine. As you see, in the outermost energy level, sodium has only one electron. Yani, the valence electron of sodium is what? Ahmed? The sodium valence electron is what? 1. What about the chlorine? In the chlorine, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We know that in the octet rule, it must be full. Because of this, sodium lose one electron, and the chlorine gain one electron. They transfer, and they form sodium chloride. What is sodium chloride, boys? Excuse me. What is sodium chloride? This is salt. You know, this is table salt, isn't it? Let me tell you something. Come, sit down, please. Boys, why you are late? Sit down, sit down. As you see, this is sodium, boys. Sodium is a metal. Sodium is a metal. As you see, this is sodium. And chlorine is a gas, poisonous gas. If you think that sodium and chlorine combine and they form salt. Sodium is edible? Edible? No, we cannot eat this chlorine also, but they form the poisonous gas and metal, and they form sodium chloride, salt. How? They combine and they form. As you see, the gods create this like this for us, salt. There is two not edible things, and they form edible salt, as you see. What is if we add sodium to the water? What happens? In the science week we did. Let's check. This is sodium I put inside the water, and as you see, what will happen? As you see, it explodes because of the sodium and water combine, and they form new substance and they explode. As you see, this is same substance, sodium. We know that in our stomach there is also water, isn't it? If we eat the sodium, what will happen? We can explode. But sodium and chlorine, poisonous gas, and sodium combine, they form sodium chloride. This is salt. We can eat this. As you see, this is magic. Magic of God. Isn't it? Yes. And as you see, this is sodium. This is, as you see, I show you this one, metal. And this is chlorine gas. They form salt. As you see, they combine and they form this. Very interesting. And the second type is covalent bond. The first one was ionic bond, and this is covalent bond. Covalent bond means atoms that share electrons form covalent bond. In the ionic bonds, the atoms are transferred. Yani one of them lose, one of them gain. But the covalent bonds, they share the same electrons. Yes. For example, chlorine, and there's two chlorine. Normally chlorine has, and the outermost energy level, 7. Also it has 7. But they use these two electrons together and become a full. Because of this, they combine, they form chloride compound, molecule. So this is, as you see, the other example of the covalent bond is water. What is H? Hydrogen. What is O? Mustafa? What is O? What's the symbol of O?
Oxygen.
Yes, oxygen. As you see, two hydrogen combine with the oxygen, but how? There is no transferring. They are sharing this electron. As you see, this electron for hydrogen, this electron for oxygen, they share two electrons and they form water. And this is interesting as well as sodium chloride. How? What is hydrogen? Hydrogen is gas. As you see, hydrogen is gas, flammable gas. It can easily burn. And oxygen is also, we can always breathe, so it's also burnable. We can burn with the oxygen something. As you see, two burning something combine and they form water. As you see, yes, always we can say that two flammable things combine and they form water. This is very interesting. Okay, and you think that, for example, how we know this, what's ionic or covalent? How we know better? What is ionic or covalent? Yes, better.
Each ionicals are formed by the attraction of two oppositely charged particles.
Yes, but covalent bond.
Ultimately, atoms share electrons.
Yes, boys, you must check the electrons moving. If electrons are transferred, we can say that this is ionic bond. If the electrons are sharing together, this is called covalent bond. So we can say that generally metals and non-metals combine, they form ionic bond. Non-metals combine, they form covalent bond. Okay? And there are two types of covalent bond. There are two types of. The first one is non-polar covalent bond. This is the second one is polar covalent. In the exam I ask you this question, you make mistake. I told you write the definition of the bonds, chemical bonds. You didn't write this definition. Why? Yes. If I said write the types of chemical bonds, type of chemical bond means ionic bond, covalent bond, and covalent bonds are non-polar and polar. Let's continue. Okay, let's continue. Non-polar covalent, this is one, first one is polar covalent bond. What is the polar covalent bond? Abdullah.
When the sharing of electrons is not equal between the atoms.
Yes. If the electrons are, we know that in the covalent bond, electrons are shared, but different ratio. But if two atoms share the electrons equally, we call that non-polar covalent bond. Yeah, they are same sharing. But as you said, this is hydrogen and there is hydrogen. There is two hydrogen, but there is one oxygen. Yani oxygen share with two hydrogen. So the sharing is different. If the electronegativity difference is high, we call that polar covalent bond. If the electronegativity difference is low, we can say that non-polar covalent bond. As you see, this is the first example of the non-polar covalent bond. As you see, there are two hydrogen atoms. Hydrogen has one electron, isn't it? Both of them has one electron. Isn't it, boys? So, as you see, they share 1-1. So equal. So we can say that this is non-polar covalent bond. But in the water, as you see, hydrogen, there are two hydrogen with the one electrons, with two hydrogen, two electrons, but oxygen has 8 electrons in the atomic change level. Oxygen share more than hydrogen. Because of this, we call this bond polar covalent bond. Okay? And how can we find which is non-polar, which is polar, what is ionic? We know that there is as you see, there is bond polarity difference in electronegativity. If between two atoms, electronegativity difference is between 0 to 0.7, we can call that non-polar covalent bond. And if between 0.3 to 1.7, this is what? Polar covalent bond. 0.3. Bond. And if bigger than 1.7, we can say that ionic, not ionic, ionic bond. As you see, between 0 and 0.3, this is non-polar because in non-polar covalent bond, electronegativity is not high. But in the polar, it's more than non-polar. But ionic is the biggest one. How can we find the electron differences? Example. As you see, boys, this is a simple problem. There is sulfur. The electronegativity of sulfur is 2.5. And electronegativity of hydrogen, cesium, and oxygen is 2.1, 0.7, and 2.8. How can we find between the sulfur and hydrogen, sulfur and cesium, and sulfur and oxygen? Yeah, we subtract, yani we can find the difference. First, we can find the sulfur between hydrogen. Yes. What is the sulfur electronegativity? 2.5. And what is the electronegativity of hydrogen? 2.1. So, difference is what? 0.4. What we learned last slide, if 0.4, it is what? Polar covalent bond. True. This is polar covalent bond. What about the next one? Who wants to do the between sulfur and cesium? Who wants to do between sulfur and cesium type of the bond? Abdullah, come and write and solve the question, please. Find the type of bond between the sulfur and hydrogen. Okay, boys, please focus on board. Excuse me, cesium. Cesium, yes. 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 Yes? No problem. Difference. I will explain. Great. Yes. Sulfur is what, boys? What better sulfur? 2.5. Yes. What about the cesium? 0.7. What is the difference? 1.8. So, we know that between the 0.3 to 1.7 is polar covalent bond. Bigger than 1.7, ionic bond. So, it is ionic bond. Yes. Thank you. As you see, between the sulfur and cesium, 2.5 minus 0.7, 1.8. Ionic bond. Who wants to do the last one? Between the sulfur and oxygen. Rebel, come and solve, please. Yes, find the type of bond between the sulfur and cesium, oxygen. Yes. We can write oxygen and sulfur and oxygen because we try to find the difference. It can be negatively, no problem. We need the difference. No problem. The biggest to lowest one, or you can subtract lowest to biggest. No problem. You need the difference. Difference between 1 and 3 what? 2. 3 on 1 what? 2. Yes, as you see, 0.3. What is the 0.3? Non-polar covalent bond. Boys, if between 0 to 0.3 and also 0.3 it is non-polar, 0.3 to 1.7 is polar, bigger than 1.7 is ionic bond. Okay, boys. Let me review and I will ask you some questions. Salahuddin, what is the what is the chemical bond? You don't need the definition. Think about what is chemical bond. What is bond? Yes, I don't need the oral definition. What is the chemical bond? Yes. The chemical bond means attraction between the two atoms we call nuclei of atom nucleus. This is chemical bond. And Mustafa, or Ebubekir, actually, Ebubekir, what is the type of the bonds? Yes, there are how many types of bonds? 4 types. Yes. And it's true but not enough. We cannot say 4 types of bonds. There are a lot of bonds, but there are metallic, hydrogen, but generally there are 2, ionic and covalent. And covalent is 2 types. It is non-polar and polar. Okay. And Rayhan, in the ionic bond, what will happen? Yes. What's ionic bond? If you say the definition of ionic bond, you can easily understand.
Chemical bonding.
Don't read. Okay. Thank you, Rayhan. Who wants to say? Salah. What's ionic bond?
Chemical bonding
Ionic bond.
Ionic bond, a chemical bonding that forms the attraction between ions and cations and
Yes, cation ions and anions. The ionic bond means attraction between the ions. Ion, ionic. As you see, ionic. Yani between the ions. Araf. What will happen in the covalent bond? Yes, in the covalent bond, the 2 atoms share the electrons of their atom, their electrons. And let me ask you a new question. What is the non-polar covalent bond? Who wants to say? Non-polar covalent bond, you know. Non-polar. Yes, Abdullah.
It's a covalent bond in which the electrons are shared equally.
Yes. If 2 atoms share electrons equally or difference is not high, low, yani between 0 and 0.3, we can call that non-polar covalent bond. Amr, what is the polar covalent bond?
They are not equal.
Yeah, what is not equal?
Electrons are not
The sharing. Yes, the sharing is not equal. Yani one atom is sharing more than the other atom. And electronegativity differences are more than the non-polars. Okay? And we finished this section, and your homework is section 1 review. Inshallah, next week I will check your homework. Okay? Thank you for your listening. Thank you too. Okay, boys, let's do example about the non-polar and polar covalent bond, finding the types of bond. Please, boys, focus on me. And I will ask you a question and you will solve. Please write the question and try to solve. Open your notebooks, please. Find the type of bond between oxygen and hydrogen. And electronegativity is hydrogen is 2.1, Oxygen is 2.8. Please, so after 2 minutes I will choose. Okay, did you finish?
Finish.
Okay, I will check. Okay. Non-polar, who said non-polar? Made mistake. Okay, who wants to do? I will come and solve this question. And please explain your friends. English. Can you explain them? First the solve, after explain. Okay, boys, be quiet. Focus on board, please. Thank you for listening. Yes.
Just to subtract 2.8 minus 2.1, it will be 0.7. It's polar.
Yes. As you see, boys, if you want to find the types of bond, you need to find the electronegativity difference. Electronegativity difference means you must subtract the electronegativity of the atoms. For example, if the question is between oxygen and hydrogen, so oxygen is 2.8, hydrogen is 2.1. So we can find the difference. What's the difference? 2.8 minus 2.1, 0.7. This is polar covalent bond. Okay. Thank you, Awar. Let's continue with the new example.
Can I solve this?
Did you write this one? Yeah. All of you right? Okay. Find the type between chlorine and lithium. Chlorine is 3.0 and lithium is 1.0. Solve on your notebook, please. Solve on your notebook. Heidi? What? Which type? Ionic. All of you say ionic? Okay. Who wants to do this? Rayan, come and solve.
Subtract by 1.0.
Yes.
2.0.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, Raya. As you see, boys, chlorine is 3.0, lithium is 1.0. Boys, we can find the type of bond without the difference. How? We know that chlorine is non-metal, lithium is metal. So between them, there is ionic bond. Or we can use the electronegativities. The first one is 3.0 minus 1.0, 2.0. We know that 2.0 is bigger than 1.7. So electronegativity is more than 1.7. We call that this is ionic bond. Let's do new example. And we will finish the lesson after this example. Okay. Find the type of between chlorine and bromine. Chlorine is 3.0, bromine is 2.8. Okay, boys, solve please, solve. You did? Okay. Who wants to solve? Neshan, come and solve, please. Boys, this topic is the base of the chemistry. It's very important. Please, when you go home, review again. This is the most important chapter of this grade 10. Please. Because we use the bond always in the 11th grade, in the 12th grade also we will use, inshallah. Nizar, please sit down. Sit down, please. Okay. Okay. Non-polar, covalent mı? Non-polar, covalent. Yes. Thank you, Nijing. Boy, as you see, there is chlorine 3.0 and this bromine 2.8. We know that both of them are non-metals. So, we can say it is covalent bond. Not which type of covalent bond? Non-polar or polar? How we can find the direction difference? 3.0 minus 2.8, we find the 2.0. 2.0 is the between the 0 and 0.3, so it is non-polar. Non-polar, covalent bond. Okay, boys. Lesson finish. Your homework is section 1 review is your homework. Inshallah, next time I will explain to you. And thank you for your listening. Thank you. Boys, we finished the types of bond. There are two types of bond, ionic and covalent bond. Let's continue about the formation of covalent bond. How the covalent bonds form? How? Firstly, you must know that the atom has two parts, nucleus and electron cloud. Because of this is nucleus, is electron cloud. There is positive charge and negative charge. And bonds can form because of the attraction. What attraction? How? We know that positive and negative charge can pull each other, isn't it? Opposite charge ions, opposite charge pull each other. So the nucleus of one atom pull to other atom electrons, and also two electrons repel each other, and because of this two attraction, the bonds can form. So as you see, like this, I explained this one, and we will learn the bond length and bond energy. Firstly, I want to say that, what is bond length? If you hear something about bond length, what do you think about bond length? Yes, Dana?
It's the distance between two atoms.
Yes. Bond length means the length of bond. Yani, the distance between two bonded atoms at their minimum potential energy. It means that, for example, boys, there is two atom, hydrogen atom. This is electrons are there. This hydrogen, and we know that hydrogen has one proton. And between these two hydrogen, this is length, this is bond. And this bond distance called bond length. What about bond energy? Yes, Salar. Very good. As you see, bond energy is the energy required to break a chemical bond and form neutral isolated atoms. It means that if you want to break the bond, yani if you want to find the atom from the compound, you need to break the bonds, because between two atoms there is bond. Well, if you want to break, we need energy. And this energy is called bond energy. Did you understand, boys? Yes. Okay. Thank you for your listening. And we will continue with the next lesson, inshallah. The brothering.